Hi guys, today we're going to be doing chapter 37 to chapter 44 of Life of Pi, and this is the beginning of part 2, and let's just start. So the first sentence in part 2 is the ship sank. Now this sentence is very short because it kind of just wants to capture how quickly the ship sank, and it's just to add a little bit more emphasis on the fact that the ship sank. And basically, Pi tells you about how he was woken up by a bang and he went and had a look at what it was. And then he looks overboard and he's like, oh, there's a bit of a storm, nothing serious. And then he looks over and he kind of sees that the boat has turned. So let's say Pi is standing here, right? This is the edge. And he's looking over and this paper is the sea. That's what he's seeing. But then he says, he's standing on the edge and all he can see is the side of the boat. So meaning that the boat is starting to sink. And then he says, I wish it was a nightmare. So he says like he was kind of just hoping he would wake up in bed in the boat and everything would be fine. And he also invites Richard Parker onto the boat. So he sees Richard Parker, the tiger, swimming. He invites him onto the boat and then he realizes, oh, what am I doing? I've just invited a tiger onto this boat, and he jumps off. Okay, then chapter 38, Pi talks about their journey before the ship was sinking, and Pi focused on the animals more than the ship, so they had stopped for a little while to get bananas and feed the animals and all that jazz. And then what happened is Ravi, Pi's brother, went into the bottom of the boat and said that something was wrong with the engines. But he didn't really care because he was focused on the animals. And then he talks about this explosion that he heard. And then he talks about the boat twisting on its side. I think I might have stuck some of chapter 37 into chapter 38, but it's okay. And then he talks about how he had seen animals being let out, and he was like, who let the animals out? I'm sure no one let the animals out, but he sees these animals on the boat. And then he says that the sailors thrust a life jacket into Pi's arms and that he notices a whistle on this life jacket. And then they throw Pi overboard into the lifeboat. So he's at first so thankful. He's like, wow, they're saving me. They really care about me. And, so he's on this lifeboat now. And then chapter 39, a zebra falls into the lifeboat and breaks its leg. And Pi sees all of this happen. And he just talks about how he's sees the zebra on the boat and he knows that he knows that now he's on a boat with an animal and the boat sort of falls into the water. And then chapter 40 is the scene where Pi jumps out of the boat. So we're going back to chapter 37 where Pi realizes his mistake and jumps off. So this says so Pi jumps out of the boat and then he climbs back in once he sees the sharks, because he's like, hold on, I've jumped off, but what's the difference if I'm going to jump in with sharks? At least I have more of a chance of survival on the boat with a tiger, Richard Parker. And then in chapter 41 he says that he made like a makeshift seat out of the life buoy and an oar, and then he sees the zebra and he's kind of like, the tiger must not be here. And then he sees a hyena and he's like, hold on a minute, if a hyena is here, there definitely can't be a tiger on this boat anymore. But then he realizes that, oh, there's a tiger on the boat. And this kind of ties in with that thing, the more you look, the more you see. And then he says he's actually so grateful that the sailors threw him into the boat, because so you know how the book at the beginning, Mamaji said to the author, this is a story that will make you believe in God. So they threw Pi onto this lifeboat, and he realized that the reason why they did that was because they wanted him to be used as bait for the hyena. But then he later says that he's so grateful that they did that, because he would have never made it onto a lifeboat if they hadn't had done that. And that's just like a small indication of how God was working and helping Pi. So you know how some people say, like, you really want something and then God doesn't give it to you, and then you question why, but God's just doing the best thing for you and you don't realize it. So a blessing in disguise. Okay, chapter 42. He says that without a driver, this bus is lost. And he basically talks about the lifeboat, that, they don't know what they're doing. They're kind of just drifting. And without a driver, this bus is lost. And you'll soon come to see that Pi's faith and religion and belief in God becomes his driver. Okay, then he says that an orangutan floats to the boat on top of bananas, because remember they went and stopped for bananas, and he sees this orangutan and he's so happy to see her, but he says it's like a bittersweet happiness because she didn't drown, but at the same time, what kind of a life is she going to have here on the lifeboat? And then he says she is the mother of 2 boys. Now this is something that you must remember because it kind of sounds like Pi's mom, because she was the mother of 2 boys. And then he says when the orangutan gets on the lifeboat, he takes the net, which became useful, but he left the bananas, and often he thinks of those bananas. Okay, chapter 43, he talks about the hyena and how it's a really hideous animal, and how it just looks horrid, and how sometimes they are cannibals. Like if they see another one of their, or if they're eating, because they hunt in packs, if they're eating an animal and one of their buddies gets in the way, then they'll bite their ears and eat it. But there's no hard feelings. But he was saying, so the hyena is a cannibal. And this is something that you must remember from this chapter because it's going to play into the book. And then chapter 44, Pi describes the first nighttime he spends there, and he just says nighttime was the most scary time because now you must remember, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there is no lights except for the stars, but they're not enough, they're not bright enough to be able to make Pi see anything. So now he's sitting on this lifeboat with 4 animals, a zebra, an orangutan, a hyena, and a tiger. And that's scary because he can't see anything, and animals have greater senses than humans. So it's saying, like, every time he hears a sound he got scared, and there was a time where he peed himself, and that's just how scary the nighttime is, because now he can't see anything and he is so afraid because he's on this lifeboat with these animals that are, like, most of them are predators. An orangutan can really hurt a human, and so can a tiger and a hyena, and they can even kill you if they're hungry. So you must understand where Pi's fear is coming from. And that's all that I have for today's video, and I hope that this helps you, and thank you for watching.